Hello, my name's Daz and welcome to my channel. I'm well into lots of very specific niche interests, and one of those is 3D printing. Another of those is breeding very exotic and sensitive shrimp, and here you can see my tank at the moment where the two have combined. What we have in here are four pillars holding up some IKEA dishes which I'm using as planters, but the problem with this isn't strength, it's that those pillars take up a little bit too much space within the tank. And so what I've decided to do is revisit this project and perhaps build some new pillars that allow all of the floor space to continue to exist, but still hold all those planters up at the heights they are there, adding the height but taking away all of the disadvantages. So what we're going to want to do is take some measurements for our initial ring or square. Then we take a look at these radiuses, just eyeball these, make some curves in Fusion, and then probably what we'll do is print off just a couple of layers of the ring, test fit it. If it's too small, make it bigger. If it's too big, make it smaller. And obviously do the same with the radiuses, and in just a couple of iterations what we should be able to do is come up with a ring that fits really nicely and looks good enough. Okay, so with a blank canvas what we did is we started off with, and I'll just step through these one by one, we started off with a sketch, and so the inner ring here is going to be the outside measurement that you took, and the outside here is going to be the thickness of the ring. What we do is step through, we extrude and give ourselves just a little bit of extra depth to play with. And then we start eyeballing and working on these fillets for the curve. So that's the curve that's going to be as close to the curve of the bowl as you can get. And in this instance I got it up to 24mm, and that seemed the same. And then what I did is I did the outside, and that's going to be different, and the curve of this is 31. And then what I did is I went around and I replicated that on all of the corners. And then what we do is we sketch on top of the ring, and I've added a fillet on the inside and on the outside. We're not going to bother with the bottom because that's what's going to stick to the bed. And now we're working on the holes on the bottom, and so I added all my holes, and then as time went on I was like, oh whoops, I've got one in the wrong place. But at this point it was hard to work out where the middle would be, so using a bit of common sense I created a sketch and squared it off and did a square between the center points of all the circles, and that just made sure that that was always going to be dead center. These are diameter of 4.1. Now that's because our acrylic is going to be 4mm, and there's a 0.1mm tolerance. But that's not going to be enough, and I'll show you how to deal with that in the build. Okay, so we've imported our model into Simplify 3D. Nice and simple. We've got those little holes, but I don't think they're going to need any supports. So we're just going to lie it down. We're going to add a small brim, and we're going to print a 80% infill, 2 walls, 3 bottom, 2 top, something like that. What that's going to give us is a part that looks a lot like that. No separation distance, because I'll deal with that in post-processing after the fact. All I'm really curious of and careful of right now is that these edges look uniform and there's no weird artifacts or extra layers or extra walls or part walls, gap fill, that kind of thing. But there isn't, and I think this will be a really easy print and not something we need to worry about. So it's a Raise 3D N2 and Raise 3D filament being used here. We've got a brim there, and we were also printing about 80% infill, 2 walls, 3 top walls and 3 bottom, I think, but a very standard easy print. Okay, so we have 8 rings printed out, tops and bottoms for each planter. We're going to have 4 of these rods in each one, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these go 5, 10, 15 and 20. The idea being that these sit in between the top and the bottom and suspend the planters. Each of these are going to require some post-processing. As you see, I use a brim with no horizontal gap, and all of these holes are exactly 4mm or near enough, and the rods are going to be 4mm, so there's no tolerance there. But this is really easy, really quick. I'll show you how I do my post-processing. It's pretty simple. So first stage for me is to take a deburring tool. There we go. You see, and the end has just got this nice little sharp blade. It's rounded on one end. But the idea being that what you can do is, first of all, I use my thumbs and push this brim over. Sometimes it will delaminate and separate immediately. And when you've got it roughly done, what you're going to do is take your deburring tool and you're going to run it around and around. And the idea is to bring this back to the actual part edge. And once you've got the majority off, what you're going to do is you're going to take a small file, nice flat edge file. What we're going to do now is we're just going to run it around the edges, bring them down. And you can be fairly rough, and don't worry too much about if it goes white, because that is simply because this edge is no longer melted because we've sanded through. I'll show you how to put that back in a moment. We're just taking off the roughness from the edge. I'm going to do that on all 8 of these. It's a little bit time consuming, but you know, it'll be good and it'll be worth it in the end. Okay, that's good enough. So once all of those edges are nice and rounded off, just get rid of all the dust. Here's a little tip. Use a lighter. I use a jet lighter. I use these a lot in 3D printing. This one's running out of gas, but there we go. Here we go. And just run that lighter across the edge where it's gone white, and you'll see where it changes very quickly. Don't get it too hot. You don't want to melt it or distort the part, but you're just going to take it just back so it's literally just ever so slightly off what's known as its glass transition temperature. That means basically when it starts turning back into a liquid. You see, there's that little mistake where I took too much off, and straight away it's almost invisible. If you do have any little stringy bits from when it was printed, you know, from retractions, this method would also clear those quite nicely as well. Again, just watch your temperatures. This is now starting to feel a little bit warm, so I'm going to put it to one side. As I mentioned, these aren't 4mm, these are probably going to be a little bit smaller. This rod is definitely 4mm, or close enough. What we're going to do is we're going to take a drill bit that we know is 4mm. Don't judge on the quality of this drill, it's terrible. But it's going to do the job here. The bottom of these holes is probably not even going to accept the drill bit, and the reason for that is that, you know, the squish layer on the first layer of the print. So the first buzz with the drill, you're going to go straight through, and then you're at 4mm, but you want it to be slightly more. So what you're going to do is wiggle it backwards and forth like this, and that's going to create just a little bit of tolerance at the bottom of the hole and at the top of the hole, and then you'll see how much easier. So we'll start. That doesn't go in at all. 2 seconds. Probably enough. It's going to melt it a little bit as well from the friction, but okay, it goes in, but it's just a little tight, and I don't want to break any of these rods, so what I'm going to do is give it just a bit more, and I'm not applying any pressure to try and go through. I don't want it to go through. I'm really just using it like a bit of a file or a bore, you know. And now, yeah, we're close. Maybe a little bit more. Applying. And don't do this with your really nice drill bits, but I'm just going sideways, just trying to just bore it out a little bit, and there you go, straight in this time. And now it is a lovely push fit. I'm not going to need any silicone, and that's perfectly straight. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for every single one of these. 4 per ring, 8 rings in total, and we're going to do all of these. So I'm not going to bore you to death with every single one. Okay, so great news. We've completed. We have 8 of these now. They've all been de-edged and all the holes have been drilled out. What I also did is after I drilled the holes, I did just use the lighter method just to tidy up the area just around the holes, just to make things nice and smooth. And you see that all of these now should, with a little bit of force, pop in. And one of the good things about using the whole wiggle method is what you do is you create space above and below the hole, so the top and the bottom, and it keeps the middle's going to still have a little bit of less tolerance, so that's going to be closer to the 4mm, and it acts like teeth holding onto the part. And that's going to be really useful. So what we're going to do now is go into assembly, and that's going to be great. So first of all, we'll start with the ones I got open, which I think are 10mm. Got to be really careful not to break any of these as well, as I didn't buy any spare. These acrylic rods are actually quite expensive actually. So they go from about 150 to 250 a piece. That's, you know, pounds, so it's quite a lot. You definitely don't want to be snapping them. So we'll just get that one in. I should also mention that there are tolerances on these as well. I think they said a plus or minus 1 or 2 millimeters, which is quite a lot on, you know, 510. So, but when they came, I did look at them all. I can clearly see that they're all of equal size, and I'll post a link in the description as to where I bought these. Now, when you're trying to push these in, if they're a little tight, what you might want to do, you've got a couple of options. You can either go back and use your drill and open it up a little bit more, or, of course, what you could do is take your lighter and just loosen up the hole a little bit, because obviously it's going to be a lot easier to push in if the holes are a little melted. Okay, moment of truth. We have a planter, a clean one, not one from the tank, just one that I've got as a spare. You see the way it works is it just sits in nicely. Obviously you're able to maneuver it around just a little bit. Once you've trued it up, it's going to be good. I think it's going to really blend in and really add something to the tank. So the next thing we're going to do is take it on over, see what happens. And so there we have it. Here's the planters within the tank, and straight away you can see there's a massive visual improvement. You can see much more of the tank, you can see the back wall, and crucially you can see underneath the planters, which is where the shrimp tend to hang out. I've noticed over the last few days that the shrimp have been much happier, they swim around a lot more, there's more room for them to swim, there's also more room and more hiding places because they can get underneath the planters, which is a great place for them to feel secure and also get out of the light and any water movement if that's what they feel like doing. For feeding and things like that, it means that I'm able to see if there's any leftover waste, and also for cleaning the bed a lot easier. Now, some areas for improvement are probably the base layers, where I may wish to extend the couplers that hold onto the rods just a little bit, maybe just to stop any potential skew, which is probably more apparent on the back planters than on the front shorter ones. But as it stands, they're totally fit for purpose, and provided I don't go in there and knocking them around, they stay very happily and quite firm. So overall, I'm really happy with this project. And if you'd like to see more projects like this, feel free to subscribe and do the usual. And please leave me some comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks a lot. Hope you've enjoyed, and hope to see you soon. Goodbye.